Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, where men go from good to great in their life and love. Listen, now more than ever, we believe that this world needs courageous and compassionate men, because we believe that when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. Now, this movement is called Dad Nation, but ultimately this is for the wives, the children, and the generations to come, because we believe that every wife and child deserves a father and a husband who is pursuing his greatness. Listen, I am your host, Mitchell Osman, and I am so grateful and humbled that you've chosen to spend your most precious resource, which is your time, with me today. You guys, I'm so excited about our episode today. We've got my buddy Adam here on the show. He is an ultramarathoner. He's an author. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's done a bunch of things, and he's got a ton of information to bring to you today. He's just going to add a ton of value, and I know it. If you had a hard time breaking free of the yo-yo dieting, or you've had a hard time being consistent in working out, if you just have general questions around that, today's episode is for you, all right? So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Adam, and let's kick it off. Well, hey, Adam, I'm so glad that you were able to join us today on this podcast episode, my friend. Listen, I want to just say that I've loved your content on Instagram, as we were just talking about a little bit earlier, just sharing some laughs over posting pictures of the same food. And I just love your perspective, your approach on health and fitness and sustainability and all those different things. And so I love it, man. So listen, I've been reading your bio. You're a certified personal trainer, functional nutritionist, public speaker, running ultra marathons, triathlons, black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, author, father, husband, pastor. I mean, is there anything else that you can do, fit in before you turn 50 or what?
I don't know, man. I think, like I told you, I think I'm just ADD, and I just like lose interest in things really quickly. So I just go on to something else. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
I might be driving
Well,
my
hey,
family crazy though.
well, thanks for
But
taking the time, man, to be a part of this. And I
no, man. Thank you.
appreciate you taking the time out of your clearly busy schedule. So tell us a little bit about yourself, other than, those giant things I just mentioned. Like, so a little bit about you. Who are you? You got a family, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for letting me be here, man. I am always honored anytime somebody wants to hear from you, right? So
Mm,
I always appreciate that, because I always tell, like I've told people before, everybody is entitled to their opinion, but you earn the right to be heard. So
mm,
I always, I'm very appreciative when people want to hear from you. So
mm.
I'm a dad. So my family and I are originally from Louisiana, so we are Cajuns, which all that comes with, right? Like hot tempers and everything else. So and spicy food. But so we're originally from Louisiana. My wife and I, Kim, have been married for 22 years now, which she's awesome. She's definitely the better half of all this equation. But we
Mhm.
have a daughter, Zoe. She's about to be 13, and we have one child. We had some issues with having kids back in the day, so we're very thankful to have Zoe. We pour everything we have into her. So
Mm.
we live in Memphis, Tennessee now. I have a business helping pastors and leaders and churches to just get in shape and take care of themselves, really think about longevity for the future. But we're also missionaries and pastors in our hearts, and we want to help as many people know Jesus as possible. So we're multifaceted, but we're still just normal people, just trying to be a better dad each day and trying to, you know, stay in shape and not let the
Mhm.
bulge take over, and just like anybody else, man. So we're out here just living life each day, trying to get better.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's cool, man. Listen, I didn't write this down, but I was thinking about it as you were sharing. Has there ever been a point where you were out of shape, and then you said enough is enough, and you had like a turning point? I know I talked to a lot of guys who had a pivotal moment in their lives where they said, you know what, I'm going to get this on track now. Or was there a turning point for you, or like a catalytic event, or has fitness and nutrition stuff always just kind of been a part of your life?
Well, that's a good question. First of all, the two are separate for me, right? So I started. My story is a little different. I have been working out since I was 14 years old, and
Wow.
and I haven't taken a break more than about 6 months. Um, and the reason for that is because I grew up in a relatively chaotic environment. My family knows both my parents are still alive. So if they hear this, I'm still going to be honest, right? I love them to death, but we're going to be honest. It was relatively chaotic. So when I was 14, my good friend Joe, his dad, uh, Mr. George, invited me to work out with him. Like Mr. George was your prototypical uh, guy back then. He had giant biceps. Like his arms were huge, but he ran marathons. So he had these chicken legs. So
Ooh.
he looked like a superhero. To me, he looked like a superhero, right? So he's like,
Yeah.
he's a complete V, right? In every sense of the
Yeah.
word. So he literally was like, I was 14 years old. I was a kid. I had no control over my life. I was battling, your typical teenage angst and, family environment. So he
Mm-hmm.
said, "Hey, just be outside your house every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 o'clock, and I'm gonna pick you up. If you're not there, I'm not waiting. Like I'm not even
Mm.
gonna stop. If I don't see you outside, I'm not even gonna stop." So I was like, "Yes, sir, Mr. George." So we started working out, no guidance. Like he
Yeah.
just put us in there. We're just two feral dogs in there. Just we don't know what we're doing. We did like 90 sets of bench presses. Can't move. Back day. What is back day?
Yeah.
I can't see the muscles. I'm not working them. So
That's
I
it.
mean, literally. But it started like that. So that has been a part of my life for forever. I mean, 30 something years.
Wow.
But diet was never a thing, right? Diet was
Mm-hmm.
never it was never a thing. We just ate. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but whenever we started having trouble getting pregnant, we started having some infertility issues and things like that. That's when diet the
Mm.
switch came on for me, right? So it was that cattle. I hit this obstacle that required me to rethink the way
Mm-hmm.
I'm going, right? Because I thought if you just worked out, you could just get away with it. But
Mm-hmm.
come to find out, there's a price for everything, right? So every
Mm-hmm.
choice you make, there's a price. It was when I was about almost 30 years old. I was like, okay, my wife and I were like, we got to figure this out. So we went the way everybody goes. We went to like the doctor, and then they're like, they don't know anything about diet. They're just like, here, take these pills. So we're like,
Mm-hmm.
that can't be it. So then we go to like the naturopath, and she's like, hey, take all these vitamins. And I'm like, that's really expensive. This is not this is not sustainable. So then we went, and my wife actually, this is such a weird story. Hopefully I'm not rambling. I
Hey,
love
man, I'm
stories. I
I'm
love
here for it.
stories. Okay. So my wife hears Jordan Rubin. Remember Jordan Rubin, the Maker's Diet? I don't know. I might be
Oh yeah.
too. I might be older. I'm older than you. So, dude, Jordan Rubin came on the scene. Dude, Maker's Diet. You're gonna eat the way the Bible says. Like Hebrews, like the Hebrews back in the day. Like somehow that's a thing. I didn't know enough about the Bible apparently to be like, "Hmm." But
Mm.
uh, so we didn't question it. We just started doing what Jordan Rubin was doing, right? And it was a very
Mm-hmm.
much for him. It was very like a N of one. Like this worked for him, great, but it
Mm.
doesn't necessarily work for everybody. So
Mm-hmm.
we start going down this road, and we start seeing some progress in our health a little bit. And then I got really turned on to all of it, and I started getting into like more of the paleo kind of primal flow, just going down
Mm-hmm.
that road and nutrient density and starting getting down that road a little bit. And that's when it really shifted for us, is whenever we ran into this obstacle and realized something had to change. So rather than being like throwing our hands up and acting like there's nothing we can do, we took a real interest in it. We kind of just went down the rabbit hole. And the thing that I think it sparked a curiosity in us that has
Mm-hmm.
not left to this day, right?
Mm.
So there was this turning point in that sense,
Mm.
because about 2 years after we made that shift is when my wife got pregnant with Zoe
Wow.
after 5 or 6 miscarriages and different things. So
Yeah.
uh, it really it was really eye opening for us in a lot of ways.
That's so good, man. I think we don't, as we were talking about, we don't see food as fuel. Unfortunately, most people don't, and it's like you
Mhm.
start putting dirty fuel in your car, bad things are going to
Mhm.
happen real quick, right?
Yeah,
But yeah, we don't really think about food as fuel for our bodies, and
true.
you just start putting dirty fuel in your car. or in your body, then before you know it, you're running into problems. Dude, your story is one of countless. I have friends in my
Mhm.
personal life that just simply cleaned up their diet, cleaned up their fuel,
Mhm.
and some infertility issues, diabetes reversals, all kinds of neurological things can be completely reversed with the
Amazing.
right fuel, right? So that's thanks for sharing that story, man. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
of course.
Um, okay, so my next question is just around your niche, like you were talking about. So you work a lot with coaching pastors
Mhm.
in health and nutrition. And so what made you get into
Mhm.
coaching specifically pastors, and like what kind of, because that's a pretty niche thing. Can you tell us
Mhm.
a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So, I know you're in the ministry world, you're in the, the Christian nonprofit world, church world. And, you know, it's a culture in and of itself, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it really has some language and to some extent, right? Like
Oh
you,
yeah.
as soon as you started talking, I was like, I knew exactly where you're from, bro. So, you know what I mean? Because it's like any world. If you're in the tech world, it has its own language and everything. So,
Hmm.
I gave my life to Jesus when I was 16, and I basically started ministry like right after that. So I've been in the ministry as well since I was about 17 years old,
Wow.
and so um, through all of that, I've seen so many leaders, pastors, and people that I admire and who would be mentors to me just fade away.
Mm.
Just health wise, just tank as soon as they get into like their mid 40s, 50s. I mean, people who are like guys and women who are in their wisest years, like they're moving into the years where they're really should be mentoring and pouring back into the the leaders that are coming up behind them.
Mhm.
And dude, they're disappearing. They're tanking.
Mhm.
After a while, I started questioning it, like, why is this happening? And of course, I had this passion for fitness, and as I'm in the ministry as myself, and I'm realizing I'm doing some of the same things these people are doing. I'm sacrificing my health on the altar of ministry, right? So
Mm.
I'm sacrificing the one thing God gave me that this body, like I can't get another one. It's the one thing He gave me that I have to do all these things He's called me to do, and I'm treating it like it's dispensable. Like I'm just going to get
Mhm.
another one, or one day I can
Mhm.
just pray and God will give me a miracle for all these
Mhm.
bad decisions I've made. So I just decided like I need to take this information and start doing whatever I can to educate pastors, support them and their teams to say, hey, if you truly believe that God has called you to do what you're doing, can you not do the least amount to ensure you can do it for as long as possible?
Hmm. It's
Right?
good.
Like, because right now you're actively working against your longevity. Like,
That's it.
you are
Yeah. Yep.
literally burning the candle at both ends. We don't use that phrase in a positive way. We don't say, hey, he's burning the candle at both ends. We don't say it in a positive way. We say it in a negative way,
Mhm.
right? We're
Mhm.
saying that is a limited strategy. That is a short
Mhm.
sighted strategy. So I just felt like the Lord really moved me into this place where I spent so many years in the church world helping. I was a missionary, I pastored for a while, and I planted churches. I helped with organizations that planted churches. So I built this network of pastors and relationships. So I end up knowing a lot of people.
Mhm.
So I wanted to take the information and say, hey, how can I take this information that God's really used to change my life and my health and my family's health, and really start pouring into guys and say, hey, this isn't about being buff. Being buff is awesome, right? That's a great
Mhm.
side effect. But what can we do to keep you in the game longer? You shouldn't be ducking out because of your diabetes. You shouldn't be ducking out because of your mental
Mm.
health. You shouldn't be limiting yourself because you've got colitis and Crohn's disease and all this other stuff. All these things that can be really helped and changed, but we just need to make a couple of changes, right? And start moving
Mhm.
things in a specific direction. So it really challenged me to say, hey, maybe I'm not in the place where I have my own church right now, but I
Mhm.
know I can help guys keep their church. I know I
Mm.
can help guys continue to grow their church and help their staff do what needs to be done.
Mm.
Because the amount of work's not going to go down. The church I'm at is, I mean, they just announced their like 13th location. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this one was international. So it's like, we're talking 15,000 people attend this church. The momentum
Mm-hmm.
is huge. It's not going to slow down because there's so many people that need Jesus. So what do? We got to make sure that our bodies are fit to do this thing that God's
Mm-hmm.
clearly blessing and clearly allowing us to do. But
Mm.
we can't be short-sighted and act like just because I work hard for the Lord that now I don't have to make decisions that coincide with my responsibility to
Yeah.
to play my role, play my part, right? So my
Yeah.
goal is just literally to help pastors and empower them to change their perspective a little bit and start making some choices that are for the long term and not just bowing to the tyranny of the urgent, which is what
Mm.
most pastors do, right? Because
Yep. Yep.
everything's important.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is, needs to be done right now,
Mm-hmm.
but not everything is necessarily beneficial for the long
Mm.
term. So that's kind of my goal. I don't know, it's a long way to answer that, but I'm tired of seeing guys die off whenever they're
Yep.
needed most.
Yep. No, absolutely. And you know what? I mean, whether you're watching the show and you are a believer or not, or you're in the faith,
Mhm.
it's interesting. The Bible does share a verse that says every good and perfect gift comes from above, and that we know as believers, we do believe that everything good comes from the Lord. And
Mhm.
so, and He's always asking us through Scripture how we're stewarding what He's given us. And
Mhm.
so He's given you one body, He's given you one life, He's given you, and so the
Mhm.
question becomes, if this is a good and perfect gift that He's trusted you with, what are you
Mhm.
doing to steward that gift well? And so, dude, I'm with you, bro. It's so important. And, it's funny you talk about just being a sort of a slave to the urgent. And I think
Mhm.
whether people are pastors or just busy dads or career professionals or whatever the case is, I think that's the case for a lot of men who have a couple of kids,
Mhm.
full time career, and they're trying to juggle it all. So I was thinking about this the other day as I was walking through the ever confusing grocery store. Um, Actually, you know what? Sidebar, because this is an interesting tangent. I was listening to a podcast a little while ago, and they were talking about how confusing the industry is these days. Like, how do you know what's healthy and what's not? And he said,
Uh-huh.
what's hilarious is all the things in the middle of. So one of my principles is like stay on the outsides
Mhm.
of the grocery store, right? Because that's where the
Mhm.
produce, the meat, the fit, all that stuff is. The second you go in the aisles, you start getting into trouble, right?
Yeah, dude.
And so he said, what's crazy about this is it's all the stuff that's in the aisles is the stuff that has a big marketing budgets, and everything is plastered all over with like low fat, high protein, low sugar, and it's screaming healthy
Yeah.
at you.
Mhm.
But the one thing that the few things that are whole foods and healthy, like your peppers, your vegetables, your chicken, that has no branding on it because farmers don't have a
Exactly.
budget. And so it's like this, of course, like no wonder if you don't know what you should be eating. Yeah, you're gonna go for the Michelinas or the whatever that's just packed full of preservatives, that's
100%.
processed and is not actually what you should be eating, but the
100%,
marketing says you should. And it's so confusing, man. There's so much noise out there. And
dude.
that's a conversation I have with so many people. It's like, where do we even begin? I don't even know what to buy in the grocery store. I mean, let alone talk about getting jacked. You're like, let's just ground zero, right?
Yeah,
And
I
so
tell
for you
people,
and
"Look,
your
if your food has a commercial, you probably shouldn't buy it."
fantastic, man. That's so good.
Like, because if you're trying to sell it to me, like, if you have to convince me to buy this thing, like, with
Mm-hmm.
all this flashy, stuff, then I probably don't need to be eating it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't
Yeah.
need to you don't need to tell me eggs are good. You don't need to tell me
Mm-hmm.
chicken's good. Like, freaking delicious. Let's rock and roll.
Yeah.
Nobody I don't need a
Yeah.
commercial, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it's crazy.
That's good.
It's so
My wife,
crazy, dude.
my wife, when we first got married, she said, if I can't pronounce the ingredients on the labels, I'm not going to eat it. And I was like, that's a great principle. So
It's
there's a
true.
lot of noise. There's a lot of noise, and so what advice would you give to the busy dad who's like trying to figure it out, but he doesn't know where to turn? I mean, we know the fitness industry is ripe with opinions, and you can find a strong opinion for pretty much anything, any approach you want to take to losing weight.
Mhm.
building muscle, whatever the case is. And some is great advice, and some people just have awful advice. And so how this, how is a busy
It's so
dad,
true,
like,
dude.
how do you know what's best, and where would you even begin? I guess that's a good question for you. Hey, real quick, we're going to get back to the episode, but I want to give you a free gift today. So if you're here and you're listening to this and you have been having a hard time in your marriage, maybe you and your wife just feel like really great roommates. You haven't had fun in a long time. You're just kind of getting caught up in chores and the to-do list and dropping the kids off and picking them up. I've got something called the Roommate Remedy, which is a free PDF. It's a guide for you. It's 113 ways to have fun with your wife and spark intimacy again. And this guide is going to teach you and your wife, and going to give you a ton of different ways to have fun. So that's totally free for you. Listen, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to have the link in the comment section below. But if you're listening on audio, just hit up dadnationco.com/remedy for this free guide for you. Listen, I believe in the marriage model. I believe in you and your wife. You can do this. I'm rooting for you. All right, let's get back to the episode.
That's a great question. Where to begin? I think one thing, so dealing with lots of clients and dealing with people who fit this scenario, right? They're busy. They got a lot of things pulling on them. There's a lot of confusing information out there. There's this guy over here saying you should be working out 6 days a week and eating 9 meals a day. And then there's this person over here saying, bread's going to kill you and plants are going to kill you. Or, you know what I mean? It's just like, there's just a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think one of the best places to start, and this might take a little work for people, but is to sit back and look at your life. What's the smallest change I can make right now?
Mm.
Okay, what's the smallest change I can make? Because we're always sold these sweeping changes, right? Because
Mm.
we love that we love that transformation story. We love that. I want to be the picture of the guy, holding up the newspaper who was fat and now he has abs. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be that guy. But
Mm-hmm.
to be honest with you, where real change happens is it happens incrementally over time. And that's where life transformation happens. So usually I tell people where to start is start as small as possible,
Mm.
right? Don't worry about splitting hairs right now. Like, should I have whole wheat bread or should I have this white bread? Because I think the white bread kills you faster, right? Like, people are splitting hairs over this stuff, right? But the big thing is to get the big rocks in place first, right? The big rocks are you sleeping? Are you sleeping? Because you know what? Every mental illness that we know of, like that's in the DSM-5 here in the United States, has sleeplessness connected to it. Okay.
Mm.
So you go crazy if you don't sleep. All right, let's work on sleeping. All right. Are you eating relatively like an adult?
Mm.
And when I say like an adult, I mean like, yeah, your plate is not just fun foods all the time.
Mm.
You're not just eating for entertainment, you're eating for fuel, you know?
Mm.
And every once in a while you have something on there maybe you wouldn't prefer, but you know it's good for you. And then 3, are you at least trying to move around? Or
Mm.
are you perpetually connected to the couch? Right? Just
Mm.
like, let's do small things first. Like, start easy. Once you get your big rocks in, it's like, dude, now you just start stacking on top of that. But if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have that foundation, you're not stacking on top of anything. You're
Mm-hmm.
you're literally just blowing around with whatever marketing comes on and whatever person with no shirt on in the grocery store is telling you that this is BS and this is going to kill you. Or I tell you what, if I see somebody in a grocery store with no shirt on telling me that chips on Taco Tuesday are bad, I'm gonna front cook them in the chest. I'm just gonna be like, look, it's over. Taco Tuesday, bro. I've been waiting all week for this. And you telling me like this is gonna kill me? Nope. Sorry, bro. You're going
Yeah.
down. But
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, there's the marketing and the noise is so loud. I think start small, get the big rocks in place, and then the number one thing I tell people is find one voice that you trust and just listen to them.
Mm.
Just listen to them for now and let their advice take you as far as it can.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're probably going to be educated a bit more so you can make an educated choice on where to go next, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So about skill acquisition. Like when I'm working with staffs and stuff like that, they're always asking these very specific questions. Well, what about plant-based protein? What about quinoa? I'm like, what
Yeah.
about it? But they want to know very specific. And I'm like, you have to realize this is a skill. Like,
Yeah.
first we have to learn how to think, then we can
Mm-hmm.
learn how to decide. We have to and you build skill slowly over time with repetition.
Mm-hmm.
So, big rocks first. Go to sleep. Start small. Go to sleep. Are
Mm-hmm.
you exercising? Are you eating like an adult? Start there,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And then work your way up. I don't know if that answers your question fully, but
Yeah,
um,
man. I think that's you bang on, because those are three things that you can do, and you don't have to listen to modern media. You don't have to hire a trainer.
you don't need a
They're real
subscription.
simple. Yeah, yeah, exactly. You don't need a subscription for that. It's free right here on the Dad Nation podcast.
Right here,
Um,
dude.
but I'm with you, man. I think the smaller changes we can make, the better, the more consistent results we'll get. Right, consistency over
Exactly,
intensity, always. And so
dude.
if I'm talking, I mean, I've seen it a million times, and I was that guy for years. The yo-yo.
Mhm.
I'm like, man, I'm going 75 hard, and I'll do it for 3 days, and
And you're
I'm
like,
pissed off.
wait,
And
maybe 3 weeks, medium
yeah,
soft. you know? Sorry.
or it was the giant fast, or it was I'm training 7 days a week because days off are for losers, just like super intense, like all wrong, and then I wondered why I yo-yoed for years and
Mhm,
struggled with perpetual just weight gain, and lose it, and I gain it and I lose
mhm,
it, because I had no idea how to live a sustainable life, and so I began to obsess with the things you're talking about, right? Like the basic principles. Have I moved today? Again, my wife has this principle: sweat once a day. That's the thing. Yeah, just sweat one time a day, and that's a
love
great
that.
place to start.
I
It's so
love that.
good. Another one thing that I talk to about people is like, just have three colors on your plate. If you're looking down and all you see is brown, and you got fried chicken, you got French fries, you got cornbread, well, that's
Yeah,
a problem,
yeah.
right?
Need a little more
But if you got some
creativity.
right? If you got some carrots, a bit of rice, some chicken, I mean, that's a little bit of brown, green,
Mhm,
orange, whatever, right? Like, and so even me today, I mean, now I'm a long ways away from that being that sort of rudimentary in my approach, but certainly, like, I still think about it. How many colors are on my plate? And if you're
mhm.
eating multiple colors, then that's a pretty good place to start, and so but I think
It's
people
hard
just
to eat poorly with multiple colors, right? It just
that's it.
because most processed foods are some shade of brown.
Mm-hmm.
They
100%.
really are because they all have
Yeah.
chocolate in them.
Yeah, and it's wild, man. We obsess about we major on the minors, right?
Mhm,
All the time. I see guys in the gym, these young guys coming to the gym, they're slamming their pre-workouts and creatine and all the and they're going to the gym, and then when they walk out, they're heading across the parking lot to McDonald's, slam some McDoubles and Big Macs, and I'm like, "Okay, cool, man. You just got your crazy pre-workout and you got a little pump, and then you probably
mhm.
consume 4 times as many calories as you just burned, right? And so
Yep.
we focus on the wrong things. And
Mhm,
I think having some real simple steps is so key. I talked to a guy a little while ago who was a personal trainer, and he's like, my first day, I take my clients to the gym and we do one exercise, and then we leave. That's it.
I love that.
And then a week later, we come back and we do two exercises. And a week later, we come back and we do three exercises. And over the course of 6 months, they develop an actual routine. When he's so highly focused on behavioral change, sustainability. It's like, hey, the heaviest, I can't remember who said this, but the heaviest weight in the gym is the front door, right? If
Oh
you can
god,
just
100%,
walk,
dude.
right? If you can just get there, and you're halfway there, right? And so I
Mhm,
love this sustainable approach. And you talk about dieting, and we hear that all the time. It's like 80-20. Diet is, your body is made in the kitchen, it's shaped in the gym. Lots of variations of that statement.
mhm,
Now, when it comes to specifically diet, I'm a huge fan of nutrition and understanding how food is fuel and how to eat for results. because that was the biggest game changer for me.
Mhm.
I had no problem training like, like a silverback at the gym. Like I'd go full scorched earth. Like I had no issue
Yeah,
with that. But
everybody
I'd
did.
eat right, and I'd eat like a slob when I got home, and I just couldn't understand why I was always just chunky. Or husky was my word. So
Husky, yeah, yeah. Plus
yes,
size.
it was husky. Um, so, but we know that diet is huge, right?
Huge,
If we're
huge.
actually gonna get results, diet is massive.
Mhm.
Um, so what would be like 3 tips that you would give if you were going to talk to somebody one time, and this was the last piece of fitness advice they would ever get around nutrition, and you had to
Wow.
give them 3 little nuggets, no pressure. What might those 3 things be around food, nutrition?
That's a good question. Um, this is a big thing. Like the nutrition piece is like I don't. I just want to kind of reiterate what you're saying, right? Working out is easy. Going to the gym for an hour, a few times a week, easy. Eating correctly the other 23 hours of the day, real hard work. Is real work. But
Mhm,
that's where the real results come in, right?
mhm.
So, and every person I've ever met who's like, "Yeah, bro, I work out so I can eat whatever I want." I'm like, you look like you should be on a diet, right?
Yeah,
You're the working out is never winning. So
yeah,
it's never winning.
yeah.
So I said that probably the 3 things, these, if I could give somebody 3 tips, number one, learn to cook.
Mm,
Cook your own food.
mhm.
Having somebody else make your food at a restaurant, realize that their job is to get you to come back, not have abs. So what are
So
they
good.
doing? They're making it as delicious as possible. What are they doing? They
Butter.
add sugar, butter, fat, everything to it, and they're there to make money. So the protein is the most expensive piece. That's why you're only getting 3 ounces, right?
Mhm,
And you're getting
mhm,
like, a head of lettuce. So,
mhm,
all right. So learning to cook, fixing your own food is probably the one of the most empowering pieces you can do. Third, prioritize protein at every meal. Every
mm,
meal. Like I tell people, if there's no protein in what you're eating, it is not food. It is a snack.
mm,
And snack is just unplanned eating.
mm.
That's all a snack is. They're like,
So
"Oh,
good.
I'm feeling kind of snacky." No, you're bored. All right? You're bored. Right? Okay. Third would be similar to what we were saying before. If it has a commercial or if it comes in, a package has more than a few ingredients in it, you probably shouldn't be eating it, or it should be
Mhm,
extremely limited in your diet, right?
mm,
Because I mean, there's 15,000 new food items that go into the American market every year. 15,000.
wow.
Okay. And they're almost all some variation of 3 ingredients: sugar, refined grains, seed oils, right?
Wow.
M-
Mhm,
Extremely processed things. They're all just some
mhm,
variation of that, right? So if you can literally just start cutting out a little bit of the packaged junk, you immediately alleviate like this huge increase of pro-inflammatory foods and just energy dense foods that have no like satiating feeling. You never feel full. I mean, I've never met a person who can eat a bag of Doritos and then is like, "Hey, I'm just too hungry to eat dinner now."
yeah,
You're always
yeah,
like,
yeah,
"I'm feeling a little snacky," and you're licking the cheese off your fingers. You just smash 2,000 calories
yeah.
and have nothing to show for it except dust on your face, right? So, 3 things, man: learn to cook. 2, prioritize protein at every meal, because the average person, especially in the U.S., under eats protein, even though they're saying it causes global warming, whatever. So,
Thanks,
don't even
Netflix.
get me on that, dude. I'm like a bull in a china shop when it comes to this. Uh, so protein is structural. You need it to build hair. You need it to build everything, all the things that you want in your body, like muscles and better hair and better skin and, better nails. Like you want to look better, feel better. That's all protein based,
Yep.
right? You need protein. Keep the junk to a bare minimum to the best of your ability.
Mhm,
You're going to start seeing real results. And if you can't cook, like for some reason you can't cook, then you find you the places you do get your meals, they need to be places that are minimally processed meals. Like there's
Mm.
1,000 meal prep companies out there now. There's probably
Mhm.
somebody in your neighborhood or in your town near you that does fit meals for
Mhm.
relatively cheap,
Mhm.
right? So there's a way to do it,
Mhm.
but don't go to
And
Panera Bread thinking you're going to get, the bodybuilding meal of the day. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
You're
yeah.
not gonna.
And how so we talk about protein, how much would you suggest that somebody get per day, for example? Because I've heard lots of different, examples about this, and some people just say, "Well, I just can't eat that much protein." They just kinda throw their hands up, but how much would you suggest if someone's trying to, stay satiated and they're working out, 2 or 3 times a week or whatever the case is, how many grams of protein would you say, that somebody should eat in a day?
Well, going by the literature, based on the like meta-analysis of I mean, there's so much you can get into in all this, but it's a range. It's a
Mhm.
range and it's different for each person because it's based off body weight and lean
Mhm.
mass. Okay. So if you are, let's say you're a 200-pound man and you have 40 pounds to lose. Okay. So your ideal body weight is going to be somewhere in the 160 range. The goal would be, depending on there's a couple of ways to figure out how to get to the amount of protein you need. Okay. So for somebody like you or me who's relatively lean, pretty good shape, you want to get somewhere between zero point 0.7 and 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Okay. It's a window. You want to be on average somewhere in that range. So for me, that would be somewhere between like 150 to 200 grams of protein a day. For somebody who is like really overweight and like, okay, like I'm obese. Okay. No, we're not going to do that because if you're 400 pounds, that's like 400 grams of protein. You're like, you're going to have chicken coming out of your ears. You know what I mean? You
Yeah,
hate life and you can't afford it.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
you want to get more of what would your ideal body weight be? Like
Mhm.
what would be your ideal body weight? And don't go look at your high school pictures and be like, you know what? When I was in high school, I weighed 115. Yeah, you were prepubescent and you were running track 6 days a week. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Yeah,
Mhm.
you're not going to be that.
Yeah.
So it'd be like, let's say you're obese and the goal is just to get down to 250 pounds. Okay. Then somewhere between 200 and 250 grams of protein a day. And
Yeah.
people will say, I can't eat that much. I can't do this.
Mm.
Eating that much is about conditioning. You
Mm.
can't eat that much right now because you haven't taught yourself to eat that much now because you're too busy
Mhm.
eating all the other things that made
Yep.
you overweight,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
So if you cut out all the other junk and you prioritize protein at every meal, meaning your plate is built around the protein source. Okay.
Mhm.
I tell people, like, if you look at the protein on your plate and you're like, oh, yeah, that looks pretty good, you need to double it. It
Mm.
needs to look like, I don't know if I can eat that.
Mm.
Right. And it
Yep.
needs to be the one thing you do finish.
Yep.
Right. Because people will be like, my wife does this. My wife is like, I pick on her all the time because she's my favorite person in the world. Right. So she won't eat, she eats everything separately and
Mm.
in order.
Yep.
Like this first, only this, only this, and then this, only this, right? And I'm like, I'm just a redneck, I'm just like, just shovel it in, just mix it up. I'm like a dog, just put it in a
Mhm.
bowl. Um, so, but most people when they eat the thing they are looking forward to the most first,
Mhm.
and they start filling up on that.
Mm.
And then the thing that's hardest to eat, they leave that on the plate if they're not, and when they're full.
Mhm.
So the other way to go is do your work first. So eat your protein. And if you're
Mm.
going to finish anything, you finish the protein and you leave the other sources on the plate, right? You
Mhm.
can leave the
Yeah.
salad on the plate. It's okay. Right? You
Mhm.
can leave the potato on the plate. It's okay. But the protein is truly where the power lies in recomping your body, recompositioning your body,
Mhm.
because it's so filling. It, it when you get used to eating this way, you don't want a snack. You don't
Yeah.
you don't get these cravings throughout the day where all of a sudden you just feel overcome with, like, I never walk past a dish of chocolates and I'm like, I can't resist.
Mhm.
I don't feel that because I'm always full. Dude, I
Yeah,
mean, you know what I mean?
yeah, totally. And I think a lot of people, that's a big right there. What you just talked about, I think, is a big misunderstanding, because you hear people say, nutritionists say you should never have cravings and you should never feel hungry if you're eating right, and that doesn't make sense to a lot of people.
Mhm.
But if they understand that protein is the most satiating macronutrient, and
By
that by
far.
simply increasing your protein intake, you can curb your appetite, that you're not, and once you can understand that and you actually begin to do it, then you're like, oh, I think I see what they mean. I mean,
Yep.
I'm the same. I'm like a savage snacker if I don't have enough protein. Like, we got a rule at my house. It's like, if it's in my house, it's in my mouth. Like, if you're gonna make cookies, I will eat all of them. If you're gonna bake muffins, I'm just gonna eat them all. And so what we
Bake
got to
enough for
do,
everybody, right? 'Cause
right? So my wife works in healthcare, and so she'll make cookies. She loves baking. So I'm like, listen, I'm gonna take two out of this dozen, right? One for me, one for you, and you're gonna take the rest to work, right? Because I will eat the other 10 tomorrow. And that's just the way. And so I just had to get to know myself, and I
Yep.
know that if my protein is not up, and if I'm not
Mhm.
eating, if I'm not prioritizing protein, my
Mhm.
cravings are through the roof, and because I'm
It's
not
true.
satiated. And I think that's such a
True.
critical element of this. Now, you mentioned something about snacking is unplanned eating, and I love that. And I just remembered something that I thought you might find this interesting. Um, I was reading about a couple of years ago, and I've adopted it. It's just it's there's three types of hunger, right?
Okay.
There's stomach hunger, which is you're actually hungry, your stomach is growling. Number two, there's heart hunger, which means you're eating because of your emotions. You're sad,
Mhm.
you're mad, you're lonely, you're tired, whatever the case is. There's stomach hunger, there's heart hunger, and then there's mouth hunger, which is cravings for something creamy, something salty, something sweet. And
Mhm.
so when I talk to people, I get them that, or and when I'm talking to guys who like want to lose weight or want to get a control on their diet, one of the things I get them to ask themselves in the moment, if they can remember, or put sticky notes on the pantry or whatever, ask themselves that question before they eat: Am I
Mhm.
stomach hungry? Am I mouth hungry? Or am I heart hungry? And the vast majority of the times we eat are usually because of heart hunger or mouth hunger, because
Mhm.
we're craving a creamy thing or a salty thing,
Mhm.
or we're eating because we're lonely, we're tired, we're stressed, we're
Mhm.
mad, whatever, right? And so the
True.
times that you actually eat because your stomach hungry is like 99% of the time you're like, no, actually I'm not really hungry because it's
Yeah, it's
not
actually
stomach
quite
hungry.
rare, right? Like, especially
Hmm.
with the level of abundance we have today, very few of us actually feel true hunger, right?
Yep, totally.
Like true hunger. Like, have
Yep.
you ever done like a fast and
Hmm.
you're like on the third day when your body's like pulling out all the stops, like surely he's trying to kill us, right? True hunger, most of us don't ever feel it.
Hmm.
Um, most of us are eating because we're bored,
Hmm.
because we're or tired,
Hmm.
which is why sleep is a big deal. Because
Hmm.
people who sleep 6 hours a night on average eat 20% more. So you can go on a diet just by going to bed. That's a 20%
Wow.
deficit.
You say that again, just in case people listen didn't hear that. That's
The
good.
studies show that people who average about 6 hours a night of sleep, which is most people,
Hmm.
you will eat 20% more food because if you don't recover, like when you wake up from sleeping and you feel recovered, you are energized,
Hmm.
right? So you actually gained energy
Mm.
from sleeping. If you undersleep, that energy has to come from somewhere,
Mm.
and food is chemical energy. Okay.
That's good.
So if I undersleep, I overeat. If I sleep enough, I eat enough, right? It's the way the
Mm.
body works.
Hence your
So,
big bucket item of getting sleep,
yes,
right?
you can
Uh,
go on a diet you can get a 20% deficit. Like if you came on with me as a client right now and you said,
Mhm.
"Hey, I have 20 pounds to lose. I'd like to lose it over the next 3 months or 6 months or
Mhm.
whatever it is," I would probably put you somewhere between a 10 and a 20% deficit in food,
Mm.
right? That's 100, 200 calories a day for most people, all right?
Yeah.
You would just snack less by
Mhm.
sleeping more. So
Yeah.
most people don't really feel hunger. They feel emotional.
Mhm.
They celebrate with food. They mourn with food.
Yeah.
They distract themselves with food
Mhm.
because if that's why phones are like phones. Phones do the same thing that food does. It distracts you from the moment. It takes you out of whatever the situation is right now.
Mm.
But when you really start getting your sleep in order, you get the quality of your food up and your protein up. You're not really hungry, like, and you
Mhm.
so you I know, like, if I find myself in the pantry, I know I'm not hungry. So
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, I need to do some introspection. Like, why am I actually in here? Right?
Yeah.
Did my
Yeah.
wife say something? Am I ticked about something? Am
Yeah.
I, you know what I mean? Like, I have
Mhm.
immediately I know because I'm like, what are you doing in here, dude? Like,
That's so good, man. And I mean, you hit on a good point there, and I think that's, and we're not going to talk about mindfulness today, but I think a large part of this is mindfulness, right? Learning how
100%.
to stop in the moment and ask yourself, why am I doing this thing? And
Hmm.
is this controlling? Am I using this to get away from an emotion that I'm experiencing? And I talk with men about like porn addictions and weed and stuff like that. And the question, I say often, like, listen, I'm not here to debate the moral, dilemma of pornography or the legalization of pot or, or anything like that. But I simply, what I'm asking is, are you doing it to mask something, right? Are you doing it to
Hmm.
escape something that you need to be
Hmm.
facing, right? And so ask yourself in that moment, are you taking this, smoking this, eating this, scrolling this, whatever, just because you're trying to escape from something that you should be paying attention to?
Yep.
And I think you're so right, man. Food does that for so many people. It's an escape. It's an escape
Yeah.
from a tough day, right, or whatever the case
Exactly.
is. So,
Right. Like, or you need a
mhm,
drink to take the edge off. Well,
yeah, yeah,
like a lot of it is, I mean, it's very difficult to talk about any of this stuff without getting into the mindfulness piece. A lot of the obesity issue and weight issue we're running into in our culture is because many of us, we cope with food. We don't need
hmm,
food. We don't
hmm,
eat for hunger. We eat for feeling and
hmm,
entertainment.
hmm,
And it's sad, but
yeah,
it's the truth.
yeah. Yeah, I was actually writing about this a couple days ago. Just the thing that differentiates us between the animal, from the animals. Like we have this elevated way of thinking where we can rise above our initial thoughts and think about those thoughts, right? A
Mhm.
lion that's running through the safari, he's not thinking. If he sees, an antelope, he's not like, "Ooh, should I eat that antelope?" Or, I mean, I had some zebra earlier. Didn't quite hit my macros, so maybe I should.
It's true, dude.
He's just like, "No, I'm hungry. I'm gonna eat this thing," right?
Instinct.
For us, we can see a piece of cake on the counter and be like, "Ooh," my first thought is, "I want the cake," right? But what people don't realize is you can actually elevate, right, and think about that thought and think, "Okay, why do I want that piece of cake? Is it
Mhm.
because I'm mouth hungry or stomach hungry or like as what you were saying, am I masking something else? Am I trying to escape something? I mean, I already had some chocolate chips earlier, chocolate chip cookies, so maybe I shouldn't eat this chocolate cake. And you can actually negotiate with yourself, right? You have the
Mhm.
power of reason and
Yep.
change your mind, right? But
Sure.
we just like we said in the beginning, so many people just say, "Well, I can't do it. I can't do it." Like, well, you can. It's hard. I
You
mean, it's
can.
simple. It's not easy, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it's a skill. It's a skill. It
Totally.
takes repetitions, right? Like,
Mhm.
um, the ability to stop and ask yourself an honest question. It's a
Mhm.
skill. Most of us
Mhm.
don't do it. Most of us float through life, letting life unfold, and we are retroactively noticing how we responded to the situation rather than
Mhm.
proactively saying, "Hang on, why exactly did I yell at my kid?
Mhm.
Why why does that tick me off so bad when they do that?" Or, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like,
Yep.
just asking real questions and then
Mhm.
being okay with what the answer is, because if you have an honest answer, then you can have an honest strategy. If
Yeah.
you have a fake answer, or you're unwilling to have the answer, then you'll never have a true strategy that helps.
Yeah. Well, I mean that we know that psychologists will say 95% of our decisions made every single day are subconscious decisions. Only
Oh man.
5% of the decisions we make in a day are conscious level decisions. So the vast majority of our day is autopilot, and that's why
Jeez.
people sadly relive the same year over and over and over again because they
Groundhog
can't
Day,
break
man.
habits because only 5% of their decisions are ever conscious. And so doing things during your day to break that subconscious pattern is so helpful when it comes to trying to reach goals and different things, whether it's
Hmm.
fitness or whether it's finances or any other thing in relationships or something as simple as like for example, we always take the same way to work, right? We always go to the same coffee
I
shop.
know, right?
Something as simple as like, well, today I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to go to on this highway to take to work, or I'm going to go to this coffee shop instead. And I'm going to talk to this person instead of that person. And subtle changes that they can break you out of that subconscious
Hmm.
mindset of living so that you don't just kind of get caught in these cycles.
Hmm.
And I think in the area of fitness and nutrition, it's a lot of times anytime we can break those subconscious ways of thinking or just doing the same thing over and over again and
Hmm.
practice this elevated way of thinking or practice mindfulness and just different things. I mean, the better chances you have of seeing success in whatever
Hmm.
area it is you're applying it, right?
You can also leverage inability to change at times. You can leverage
Mm,
it to help you change, right?
mm,
So, for instance, if you go to work every day the same way, for instance, I have clients that are like, I don't know why I can't get to the gym. I
mm,
pass by the gym all the time and I see it
mhm,
and I say, I should be in there, right? And they go
mhm,
to work 5 days a week, just like, every person.
mhm,
So I said, okay, well, instead of asking yourself why you can't get to the gym, go ahead and put all your workout gear in the car,
mm.
in the front seat next to you,
Yeah.
right? With a change of clothes, everything is right there.
Mhm.
Then, when you see the gym, you have no excuse to not turn in.
That's it.
If you don't turn in, you are willingly choosing not to do the thing. So
Mhm.
then you know what the problem is. The problem isn't,
Mhm.
oh, I don't have my stuff. The problem is you are willingly choosing to stay the same. And that's
Mhm.
okay as long as you're being honest with yourself. Don't lie to
That's so
yourself and
good.
say, I don't know why. You know
Yeah.
exactly why. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, I mean, that's environment design, right? James Clear,
Mhm.
one of my favorite authors, wrote a
100%.
book called Atomic Habits, and that's one of his big things is design your environment to line up with your goals, and that's a great example of something
Mhm.
like that, right? If you wanna drink
Exactly.
more water, put more cups around your office, your bedside table, the kitchen table. If you want to go to the gym, put your bag in your car right in front of you. And so design your environment to optimize, your goals and what you want to achieve. That's cool, man. Dude, I'm such a geek. I'm sorry if I'm like
No, dude,
geeking
I'm
out here.
in. Like, I'm in. Like, I'm here for the rabbit hole. Let's go, dude. Let's just go down the rabbit hole. Let's go.
Uh, okay, so we talk a lot about food and
Yep.
nutrition and stuff, which is great, and I'm happy about that because that's such a big part of our progress. But now let's talk about fitness because not everybody, I know some people just are like, I don't like working out, I don't like the burn, I don't like, whatever, right? So, what would be, I asked you 3 tips for food and fitness or food and nutrition. What would be 3? Like if you had a guy again, same scenario, guy comes up to you, he's going to get 3 tips from you, he's never going to see you again but they're basically around training, physical exercise, whatever that looks like. What would be 3 like good principles that they could live by or adopt that could help them get closer to their goals?
Um, okay, there's a couple of things. When it comes to training, um, I have a couple of definitions first. Like, first of all, everybody eats. So eating is light. No one's going to choose not to eat. So that's one of
Yeah,
the easier ones to deal with.
yeah.
The harder one to deal with is the fact that you literally have to choose to be active these days. We have designed life in such a way that activity is optional, right?
Mm,
We have conveniently taken everything out. I mean, if you really think about it, like, a few hundred years ago, just the amount of energy, the cost per calorie, the amount of energy it costs to get per each calorie, right?
mm,
You had to work really hard to
yeah.
get a calories worth of food, right? Which is why animals in the wild are shredded, right? So
Mhm.
they're just like, You run for your life all day, every calorie matters. But
Yeah.
when it comes to exercise in general, there's a couple of things. The first thing is when you're first starting, just do something you like,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're literally just starting, you make it simple and enjoyable. Enjoyable makes it sustainable.
Mm.
Okay. Sustainability is the key because if you do something once, who cares? Can you do it, for years? Can you do it for
Mm.
weeks or months, right? So the first tip is do something you like. So if you
Mm.
like riding bikes, go ride a bike, man. Like
Mm.
if you I love martial arts. I know guys, if I talk to them about lifting weights, they're like, nah, man, I'm just going to do jujitsu. I'm just going to choke people. Okay, cool. Right? Choking people's great. Is that your thing? Let's do it. We call it pajama wrestling. If that's your thing, dude, just wrestle in your pajamas. That's good. And that's a great place to start
Yeah.
because it's enjoyable. So you'll keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
First step is make sure you do something enjoyable. Once you get to that place, then you have to do something that has a return on your investment. Okay,
Mm.
because the whole point of exercise is the whole point of exercise in general is it's a lever we pull for health. Okay,
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
it is dose dependent.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point the dose has to go up, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't just go for long walks on the beach every day and expect to have
Mm-hmm.
abs. It's just not going to
Yeah.
work that way unless you're
Yeah.
like not eating, you know,
Yeah.
and then you're just skinny with abs, which I got told people it's like I saw a meme that said uh, having abs because you're skinny is like having big arms because you're overweight. You know what I mean? It's like
Oh, that's funny.
like you got like 14-year-old kids. They're like
Yeah.
flexing their abs, and you're like, dude, I can see your arm, dude, your bones. It's just
Your
funny.
bones. Yeah.
So you have to have some form of progression to really
Mm-hmm.
pull this lever, right? So once you find something you like to do, now you find a way to make it more challenging. So if it is riding
Mm.
a bike, start riding a bike for time. If
Mm.
it is doing martial arts, find a way to make it a little more intense, right?
Mm.
So it's
Yep.
still the thing you like to do,
Mm-hmm.
but make it more intense because the body
Yep.
responds to struggle. The human
Mm-hmm.
the human organism in general is designed to thrive under struggle. That is what it does. It is an
Mm.
adaptation machine. Whatever you ask it to do, it will get better at, literally.
Mm.
Like if you sit on the couch, you get better at sitting on the couch,
Yeah.
right? Like you do. Like you see
Wow.
people who work at a desk all the time, their physiology literally starts to conform to being at a desk. They
Yeah,
become
it's
in.
true.
They become in, right? So your body is just an adaptation machine. So, and then third, once you get to that place where you can make it more intense, now you become more specific,
Mm.
right? Because now you become more goal oriented, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you need to decide like, where do I really want to go with this? Like, now that I've started exercising and now that I'm doing these things, what do I want to see come from this? And that's when you start creating a vision for where you want to be with your fitness.
Mm.
Because there is two different types of exercise. Like there's exercise and then there's training.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going, right?
Yeah.
Exercise is like, oh, it's just fun. You made the sweat angel on the
Yeah.
ground. Oh, that was such a hard workout. My legs were really burning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you go to Pilates, like girls go to Pilates and like, oh, my abs were just really burning. Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
What did you get out of it? Like,
Mm.
like how did your body change?
Yeah.
Training is specific. Training has a goal. So
Mm.
that's why like exercise is like going for a walk, gardening in the yard, riding your bike, riding your skateboard, whatever you want to do. But
Mm-hmm.
training has an adaptation goal that I'm looking for, which is that's
Mm-hmm.
where lifting weights, resistance training, those things come into play because those when you start pulling those two levers together, you really
Mm-hmm.
start changing your physiology for the better. And
Mm-hmm.
according to like Peter Attia and some of these other guys that are really high in the longevity game right now,
Mm-hmm.
they're saying exercise literally is the number one lever you can pull for health and longevity in general. It affects everything. It is the secret elixir. It's the fountain of youth. It is
Mm-hmm.
the secret everybody's been looking for that's been hidden
Mm-hmm.
right under your nose. It's been hidden in plain sight while you've been over here on QVC looking for secret green smoothies that detox your liver and your colon all at once.
Yeah.
You should have been going for a walk. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's the one thing that is like free medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And we're overcomplicating it significantly. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, man. I think that's huge. I mean, that was a big thing for me. Was finding something that I enjoyed. I mean,
Hmm.
until that happened, it was just aimlessly
What do you
walking
what do
around
you
the gym.
enjoy? Like, what's the thing you love? Like,
Well, what was first was actually squash. I don't know if you know what squash is, like racquetball kind of thing.
yeah, dude,
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of
squash is
I
tough,
feel right. I
dude.
was
It
pretty
really
chunky.
is. Like, you got to
Yeah,
run,
yeah, dude.
you
Yeah,
know.
I was
And those
over.
old guys get serious.
Yeah, dude. And I was like chubby, chunky Mitch running around the court,
Let's
out
go,
of
boy.
breath, gassed. But I don't know. It was something about being in that boxed up little room and just slamming this little
Was it the
black ball
competition
around.
of it too?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Did that
And
kind
it
of
was,
feed your
mm-hmm,
inner
mm-hmm.
beast?
Yeah, and it was all cardio, and I
Hmm.
lost a bunch of weight, and then
Hmm.
my squash court was in a gym, and then I saw a lot of the people at the gym, and I was like, I should try out lifting some weights and whatever, and
Hmm.
then for me now, I mean that was years ago, but for me, what I enjoy, I don't like cardio. I don't like running. I should say more specifically, I don't enjoy running, but I do understand the importance of prioritizing my cardiovascular health and system.
Hmm.
So I do now. I love weight training. I love resistance training. I love lifting up heavy things and putting them back down over and over and over again in the same spot.
Hmm.
But I do that with structured cardio. So 20, 30 minutes, a quick 2, 3K, and then a weight training session.
Hmm.
That's for me. I'm like, I can deal with a run if I know that I can just then go to the weights, right? A lot of people do running after the weights, but I'm like, you know what? Number one, if I if I don't run first, number one, I'm not going to do it. But two, while I'm running, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to I gift myself the ability to lift weights because I enjoy it so much, right? So that's why I
Yep.
structure it that way. But for me, it's obviously both these things burn calories. But for me, once I understood resistance training, understood sort of the diet and then also the science of like just building muscle and understanding even just little things like aesthetics and to
Hmm.
get the results that I wanted. And my journey went from, squash to a little bit of cardio. And it wasn't like you said, it took me a long time to kind of get it figured
Hmm.
out and dialed in. I'm talking like 3 years, but eventually I got to the point where I developed consistent rhythms and habits. And now, of course,
Hmm.
looking back, and after studying it and studying behavioral sciences and why we do what we do and all that stuff, it all makes sense now. But I just was like shooting at moving targets. But for me, it was squash because I really just had a good time. It was so intense and I really liked it.
Hmm.
Really
But
hard on my ankles. It
that's
was
what's
really
great
hard on
about
my
it too,
ankles.
though. Yeah, I bet, dude.
Sorry.
You're a big boy, and you're like
Yeah.
freaking juking people, boy. You know what I mean? Like, you're just breaking ankles, right? But I think it's great what you're saying. Going back to James Clear's point,
Mm-hmm.
put yourself in an environment where change is easy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the change to go from playing squash to, oh, let me go do a couple sets of curls.
Mm-hmm.
That's not huge. That didn't require you driving, didn't require you changing clothes and being awkward or weird in the locker room. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
require any of those obstacles. It just was like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, let me just go step over here and do some curls and then go home or whatever.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think starting with what you like and then escalating from there and getting specific,
Mm-hmm.
because now you're doing exactly what everyone should be doing, which is prioritizing your strength, because strength is never a weakness. It always comes in handy. People who are strong are harder to kill and generally more useful. You don't call your skinny friend to help you pick up the couch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, and then your cardiovascular system is prioritized because having good cardiovascular fitness is as positively correlated with longevity as much as smoking is negatively correlated with longevity, right?
Hmm. Wow. I've
So,
never heard a phrase like that, but it's a powerful way of comparing the
yeah,
two.
yeah. So,
That's
as
cool.
bad as smoking is for you, cardio is that much better for you,
Wow.
right? So it's like now you're doing all of it, and it all started with squash with Chubby Mitch,
Chubby
right?
Mitch and his swollen ankles. Yeah.
I love that, dude. What a visual, dude. You're baking bread in those shoes, man.
Man, it was wild. But you know what? You talk about James Clear, and another principle that he talks about is habit stacking. And of course, I'm just
Yep.
realizing this now. But really, what I was doing was habit stacking because I had already developed a
Mhm.
habit of going to the gym and playing squash. And then so I said, well,
Mhm.
while I'm here, I may as well do some curls. Stacking that habit that I wanted to
Mhm.
form to my well-formed
Love it.
habit. It's like for people who, want to floss their teeth more, it's like, well, if you already have a habit of brushing your teeth, right? So take the floss, wrap it around your toothbrush, so you
Yeah.
have to floss your teeth because it's right there. You're taking a habit that
You have to touch
it's
the floor.
already ingrained. Exactly. Stacking it with something you want to
Yeah.
do, right? It's so much easier, right? So
Yeah.
that's
I
so
do the
good,
same
man.
thing with I do the same thing with like stretching because like people are like, "Hey Adam, do you like yoga?" And I'm like I like the idea of yoga. Like I
Mm,
really do. Like I just interviewed a lady, April Hill. She's on my podcast. She's into yoga. She's changing people's lives with yoga. Me and yoga, I just can't seem to get there, right? So what I do is my coffee is going to take about 10 minutes. So I stretch every morning for 10 minutes while my coffee
hmm,
brews. Rather
love it.
than dinking around, sitting over there twiddling my thumbs or looking on social media or whatever, dude, just
Mm-hmm.
touch your toes, squat down a little bit. You know what I mean? Like just stretch
Mm-hmm.
out a little bit. And it has kept me quite limber for a 6 foot, 200-pound man. I'm still pretty limber,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
So it's just habit stacking, right? Just making it easier. Smart.
Yeah, I want to like yoga. You know what I mean? I really
I know,
want to
like
do
it
that.
looks awesome. Like,
Mm,
can I do this?
mhm.
And like, and I try it and it looks just like a stack of bricks trying to move fluidly. You know what I mean? Like, or a
Yeah.
person just made out of logs. That's what I feel like. I feel
Mhm.
like I'm just made out of logs. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh," and
Yeah.
everything's creaking. I'm like, this is just, I
Yeah.
can't. I feel like I'm failing.
Yeah. I was talking to someone the other day. We were talking about being at the gym and being new, going there, and it was probably 3, 4 guys there was at the time. And they're like, "Man, I feel like when I go, like everyone's staring at me and like I don't know how to use the machines and I just feel kind of dumb. Like I walk on the weight floor
Mhm.
and like everyone's just like, what's he doing here? And I used to think that way too until one time, one of my first trainers said to me, he said, why are you so egotistical? I'm like, what? Excuse me? He's like, do you actually think that everybody in this
Mm.
room is noticing
Yeesh.
you walk into the gym and noticing you picking up your 25-pound dumbbells or 10 pounds or 100 pounds? He's like, listen, man, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Get over yourself.
Dude,
And I
what a
was like,
reality check. And it's so true.
it's true. I'm like, and he was like,
100%.
think about it. Do you see everybody coming to the gym? I'm like, man, I don't even know who's around me. Because I'm in a zone.
Yeah.
I got
You're
my
there to do
headphones
work.
in. Yeah. And so that's what I've been telling people, since he told me that. It was like, listen, I know it feels weird. I know you feel awkward. I know it feels like people are looking at you, judging you. Nobody even notices you. Right. So just
Nobody.
take a slice
You
of
know?
humble pie, get over
Dude, I love
yourself.
that. It's so true too, right? Like
Yeah.
the only time I notice people when it's like they're about to get injured,
Mm.
right?
Yeah,
Like I see
exactly.
them
Yeah.
out of the
Yeah,
corner of
yeah.
my eye and I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
kid's
yeah,
back should not bend that way. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, or
yeah,
every Friday afternoon, there's like 16-year olds max benching,
yeah.
some guy's getting guillotined by the bench press, and his friends are like, "You got it, you got it." He's like, "Oh," I'm like, "No,
Oh,
he don't got it." You know,
man.
it's
Yeah,
so true, dude. But other than that, who notices? I don't notice anybody, man. I'm there to do work. You
yeah,
know, I love it,
yeah.
man.
So I try and encourage people with that because at the end of the day, it's true. I mean, and it's not
Super
that we're
great advice.
egotistical, but it is what it is. So if you're watching this and that was your thought, then I hope you take it away. If that's the only thing you take from this podcast episode, is that nobody sees you. Nobody cares about what you're doing in the gym.
Hey, get over
Then take
yourself.
that.
I tell people, especially ladies, confidence comes with repetition,
Mm,
right?
that's
Comes with
good.
repetition. Like the more I do a thing, the more confident I am at a thing. So if you
Hmm.
can put yourself in the environment a little at a time, you're
Yeah.
going to get more confident in the environment. So
Yeah.
I've had ladies that come to me, never worked out before in their life.
Hmm.
They're 100 pounds overweight. They're so self-conscious of their bodies and
Hmm.
everything. And it's like, look, just get in the environment. You've been this size for a long time. No one
Hmm.
in there is going to judge you more than you think people are judging you out here.
That's it. Yeah.
Right. So get in the
Hmm.
environment and just get adapted to the environment. And now they're like
Hmm.
75 pounds down and they're like
Hmm.
in there just slinging weights. You know what I mean? And they're
Hmm.
like, I never thought I would like weights. I'm like, it's because
Yeah.
you never tried weights. It's like, it's
Hmm.
just confidence comes with repetition. So
Yeah.
I love it.
It's so interesting, man. I have a similar saying. Confidence is a result, not a requirement.
Ooh.
Confidence is a result. You cannot wait
Mm.
to be confident to do the thing. It's not a requirement. It comes
Hmm.
from doing the thing. It's a
That's so
result
good, dude.
of doing the thing. And so don't wait
Ooh.
to be confident because you'll never be
Come on,
confident,
Mitch.
right?
Come on, Mitch. You gonna don't get a preacher preaching. Come on, that'll preach right there. Oh Lord, that's
Yeah,
good stuff.
man. And that was the thing. That was the thing that was a game changer for me. And not just fitness, but in everything, man. Because I'd be like, no, I got to get it right. I got to be good at it. I don't want to look like a failure. I don't want to, whatever. And it's like, that's not, I'm not required to be confident to do this thing. I got to
Mhm.
just jump in and do it. And that's going to be a result. That's it. Right.
I
And so when
love
you
that.
stop waiting for confidence, you'd be amazed at what you'd be confident enough to do. Sounds weird, but it is what it is.
No, it's
Right.
true, right? If you lower your own standard to a level,
Mm-hmm.
to where you're like just allowing yourself to be a learner,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and then eventually confidence will come with that. That's awesome, dude. That's a really great thought.
Thanks, buddy.
Dude, man.
So last question for you. Actually,
Okay.
second last question for you.
Okay.
We're getting on the home stretch. And then maybe there's a personal, maybe 10, 15-year-old me is asking you this question rather than 37-year-old me. But I was the guy who struggled for years, man. Like I said, yo-yoing, right? Up and
Mhm.
down. And I just could not get a handle on it. Like I trained for 6 months and I'd just be like I'd be drinking cabbage soup and eating salads, and then I just fall off the wagon and be slamming Big Macs and eating Cheetos, for 6 months, and I gain it back. 6 months later, I'd be like, oh man, it's January 1. I got to get back to the gym. So it
Yeah.
just constantly, like, it took me years to break the cycle of yo-yoing, right? If anyone's listening to this podcast episode and they would identify with that struggle, with this inability to be consistent,
Mhm.
and even sometimes eating is fine for a season, and training or exercising is fine for a season, but they're just unable to make it a consistent part of their, like, to turn it into a lifestyle, right? What piece of advice would you give a person who's struggling with something like that?
That's a great one. And I think the vast majority of people struggle with this, right?
Hmm.
So, um, I personally think that it comes down to identity. Like this might get a
Hmm.
little deep, but I don't mean it to. It comes down to who do you see yourself as, right?
Mm.
So, if one of my core values, which it is for me, a value of who is Adam is a fit person who strives to be fit, stay fit for my family, for my purpose in life, and for my general health. Right? That's
Hmm.
it's a core value.
Hmm.
So it's very difficult for me to not be me.
Hmm.
I am always me.
Hmm.
And when I'm forced to not be me, which is I have to miss training and not focus on my health, it grates against who I am. Right?
Mm.
So I have made this part of my identity. When people who are struggling with it, and I heard this story recently, James Clear is taking over our podcast
Sponsored
here.
by
Yeah,
Sponsored
yeah.
by James
He
Clear.
actually did. He actually did an incredible interview with Peter Attia on his podcast, and dude, it
Okay.
was one of the best conversations. So you should definitely check it out.
All right.
But he talked about how a lady who had this issue, she was very overweight, so she just started asking herself one question throughout her life, like every day, multiple times a day. What would a fit person do? in
Hmm.
this situation. So it's like, I'm going into my hotel. There's the elevator. There's the stairs. What would a fit person do? Take the stairs.
So good.
All right. I'm ordering at a restaurant. What would a fit person do? Oh, they'd probably get something sensible. They probably wouldn't get, the atomic nachos with, brisket and, everything else on it, right? So it's like just asking yourself, what would a fit person do, is a really great way to do it, because it starts to create identity. Because
Mm.
eventually it's not what would a fit person do, it's what should I do in this environment? What do
Mhm.
I do in this environment? Because I am a
Mm.
fit person. So that's one thing. You have to attach this goal, this desire of yours, to who you are,
Mm.
because otherwise you're fighting against yourself. You see
Mhm.
yourself as not fit, trying to be something you're not, right? So you're in
Totally.
this you're in this you're constantly butting up against yourself. So
Mhm.
it's, I am fit. If you need to write it on your mirror every morning, I am fit, and I will, whatever it is, whatever those words that inspire you, it has to be a part of your identity. And then two, Ecclesiastes says, a wise man avoids all extremes. So
Mm.
you can't make it extreme. It can't be extreme. Extreme is not sustainable, and
Mhm.
sustainability is key, right? It has to be like, you have to, like, not to be too cliche, but you got to be like Bruce Lee said, you got to be like water, right? You got to be like water. How does water change rock? Through light pressure over time. It's
Mm.
light pressure over time. It's consistent pressure over time. And
Mhm.
um, that's how you change who you are. That's how you change your habits. You don't say, hey, I'm now going to be a vegan, and I walk everywhere, and I go to PETA rallies, and like, you just shift your life into this dynamic direction, right? You don't do
Mhm.
that. You say, okay, what would a fit person do? Okay, they would probably go for a walk right now instead of sitting
Mm.
on the couch. Okay, perfect.
Mhm.
One thing. All right, I'm gonna have dinner. What would a fit person eat? Light pressure. Light pressure. Don't make it crazy. Don't. You're not gonna win by being
Mhm.
extreme. The
Mhm.
people who have the most success in this, the people who I see do it for the longest, they keep it simple, which makes it sustainable, which makes it repeatable. It's easy, it's simple. It's,
Mhm.
like me, I have trouble running, like you said. Like, I'm like, that's why I learned jujitsu, because I don't have to run. I'm gonna fight you. So, you know what I mean? Like, rather than you chasing me, I'm just gonna turn around and fight you. So,
Mhm.
but I knew, like, I was avoiding running
Mhm.
because it made me uncomfortable. So what did I do? I bought a treadmill,
Yeah.
and I put a treadmill in my garage, and now it's right there. I have no excuse.
Yeah.
So I made it simple. I made it simple for me to say, look, I'm just going to go in there, and I'm going to stay on there for 15 minutes.
Mhm.
Made it simple. So attach it to your identity. Keep it simple. No big sweeping extremes. You don't need to go on the carnivore diet. You don't need, I mean, you could. I've seen people get some great results. It's
Yep.
it's difficult, but I've seen some people do it, right? You don't need to start intermittent fasting every day and waking up at 4 and having, you don't need to do it. You just need to
Mhm.
start slow. Start
Mhm.
choosing a little bit better. And then once habit starts kicking in, then you can dial up intensity.
Yeah.
But those are the things that I focus on first. Is like, who are you? Who you want to be? Let's start directing ourselves there, and
Mhm.
then let's make small changes over time,
Mm.
because they're consistent and they're easy, right? And you're
Mhm.
gonna
Yeah.
fail. Having a sense of compassion on yourself,
Mhm.
getting rid of that like coach's kind of voice that we all have, like, you loser, why couldn't you do this? Like, we
Mhm.
all kind of have that voice,
Mhm.
that's in our heads, and you have to kind of ask that thing to be quiet and say, hey, look, we're moving this direction. This is where we're headed, dude. So you
Yeah.
can jump on, or you can stay here.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think those are the things. I don't think people respond really well to extreme anymore. I think there's so many other things going on in life. There's so many other pressures, and I don't
Mhm.
think I have not found much success with clients by going extreme with them. So
Yeah.
those are the things that I focus on.
We're all drawn to the extreme though, right? We love like the social
It's
media,
exciting.
the over the top. It's like, oh, I want that, but few people realize how boring this really is.
Oh my god,
Listen, man, it's so boring. It's
it's so
mindlessly boring.
boring.
I'm gonna match your Bruce Lee quote with another Bruce Lee quote
Let's freaking go.
about
I
about
love that, dude.
consistency, because this was one that I read and I was like, dang, that's good. He says, I do not fear the man who practices 10,000 kicks. I fear the man who practices one kick 10,000 times. And he speaks about the power of consistency, the power of repetition. And that's another thing that's just like, that's it. That's how you get the confidence. That's how you get the results.
Mhm,
That's how you know
mhm,
what I mean? See what you accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish. It's like repetition,
mhm.
boring, one kick 10,000 times. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love
So,
that.
hmm
And I think one of the great things too, when you start thinking about, like what Bruce Lee said, he wasn't learning to fight somebody for one day. He
mm,
was a martial artist. It was his identity.
hmm
It was who he
yeah,
was. It was how he embraced the world. It's the lens he saw the world through. So I think we have to stop thinking in terms of weeks or blocks. We have to start thinking in terms of years,
hmm
decades. Like,
hmm
can I do this for the rest of my life?
hmm
Right? And
hmm
like we think in long term, and that's you're going to start changing in the long term that way. You're not going to change over 12 weeks. You're not going to become a different person over 12. You might get abs,
hmm
you might get a nicer butt in 12 weeks, but you're going to be the same person who had trouble getting there to begin with. So you have to
hmm
slowly changing who you are takes time. Changing your body is actually quite easy.
hmm
But changing the person who created that body to begin with is takes a long time. So
yeah.
I think just changing the time frame thinking as well is a big deal. Too many people just want to look good for the beach and then look like a slob during the winter.
No, man, and I think that's like that. I think the statistics are something like 95% of the people who lose the weight that they attempted to lose gain it all back and more within 1 year of losing it,
Mhm.
which is like astronomical numbers. But
Mhm.
it's just like we don't change our identity. Like you said, we don't. It doesn't connect with our core values, right? And
Mhm.
like it's like why power versus willpower. Why power is always going to outweigh willpower, because if you can do something that can connect with your why of like, man, I want to be the dad who can keep up with his kids. You're not going to say, well, I want to be able to keep up with my kids for the first 5 years of their life.
I know.
you know
Yeah.
you're going to say, I want to be the dad who's going to keep up with their kids when they're like, when I'm teaching them catch, but when they're playing hockey, I'm playing with them, whatever. So when you get something attached to your why, that's got the lasting power.
Mhm.
When your willpower doesn't, when it runs out, and
100%.
that's the importance of like connecting with your why, with your core values, with who you are, your identity. This is who I am. This is just what I do, right?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
that's huge.
And what you do doesn't have to be extreme.
No, no,
What you do just
totally.
has to be consistent with who you want to be, right?
Exactly.
You don't
Yeah.
have to you don't have to go to you don't have to work out 7 days a week and
Yeah.
run marathons. You don't have to do any of that. You just need
Mhm.
to whatever it is that fulfills you and fulfills the goal you have.
Mhm.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
It's a continuum. There's so many variations of this. The point is just to start. Like
Mhm.
the Chinese proverb, what is it? The journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. It's just take one step and just
Mhm.
then put one more foot in front of the other and just plan on not stopping,
Yeah.
right? Just
Totally.
if you plan on stopping, you're gonna lose. So
Yeah. I was talking to a guy a little while ago who was very much obese, like up around the high 400s,
oof,
low 500s, yeah,
that's tough.
and wanted a big plan. And I said, listen, quit soda, walk around your block. That's it. And once, just do it. Just do it for a month. That's it. And he's like, what? That I should like, shouldn't I buy a treadmill? Or shouldn't I go to the gym? Shouldn't I like just eat more salad and blah blah blah? I'm like, listen, you're drinking, 6, 8, 10 cans of Coke a day, right?
You wanted to say
Even if you
pop.
just swap, even if you swap it out for like diet, dare I say
Mhm.
it,
He's
Coke
eating
Zero,
cancer. Not more than being 500 pounds is.
right? Or just that's it. Still eat everything you've been eating. I don't care how many
Mhm.
Snickers bars you eat. I don't care how much ice cream you eat. Just stop drinking soda. Stop drinking pop, and then walk
Mhm.
around your block. That's it. And then after a month, let's talk, right? But just even in that moment, he just couldn't grasp it. He's like, no, I
Mhm.
need to do more than that. I'm like, no, because you will
Yep.
fail, right? The
Mhm.
power of consistency
Mhm.
is huge.
You change your habits, you change who you are.
That's it, man. But
So
hey, last question for you. Promise. This is the
okay.
last one.
Okay, good.
Okay, this is
I'm in.
this is a, this is a question I'm going to ask everybody on this podcast, because we talk a lot about the chapters that you're writing, and that we all every day that we live, we're writing a new chapter in our book. And the beauty of that is you get to change the narrative of your story. You can reflect back over the chapters you've written. You can decide to write a new one differently. But every single morning you wake up is a new opportunity. And realistically, when we die, right, people are going to tell that story. The narrative of the story we wrote, they're going to tell that story to your kids, your grandkids, right? And so the question I ask, man, is what chapter are you writing today? What chapter are your kids going to tell at your funeral, right? And it's a little bit of a morbid thought, but the question is, picture yourself, right? Okay, your funeral is just, the ceremony is just over. You're having this like out of body experience, and you're observing, your daughter Zoe and your wife sitting around the table, and she's maybe your daughter's talking to one of her friends about who you are, who you were, and the life you lived. What's like the one thing that you would want her to talk to her friends about the man you were? What would you want her to say?
Man, that's a tough one. Okay, that's a big question. So
No
it's a
pressure.
good question. It's a good question though, because I think reflecting on uh, the end helps you adjust course in the moment, right? So I would say I would want my daughter and the people around me to say that number one, I love them to the best of my ability,
Mm,
right? You love them. That you are always open, always compassionate, accepting, and gracious. Because I
mm,
think that's in short supply. Another thing I would like my family to say is that I was a man of conviction. I had values, and I stuck to my values, come hell or high water.
mm,
Um, I would want them to say that not only did he love us, but he loved God so much that it bled over onto us. You know,
mm. Yep.
because I don't think if I don't have a true north, if I don't have something I'm shooting for, then I'm kind of just winging it. Like if I don't have GPS and I want to get from here to California, I can't just guess my way through it. I have to have a
Mhm,
turn by turn direction.
mhm,
So I think I want to be known for loving my family and loving God, and I want to be known
mhm,
for having convictions, and then
mhm,
living a life of example.
mhm.
I don't feel like I had very good examples in my life. I feel like most of what I've learned in life, I've had to teach myself. So I want to live a life of example to the best of my ability so that those who are around me are always better for it, not worse for it.
That's it.
So, yeah,
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing, man. Appreciate that. If you listen and notice that everything he said, money can't buy.
100%.
Money can't buy.
100%.
You can't buy integrity. You can't buy character. You can't buy love. You can't buy having core values. You can't, all that. No one's on their deathbed saying, "Man, I just wish I made more money. I
I
wish
wish I
my
worked
kid
a little more.
I wish I worked
What?
more." Well, hey, man, thank you so much for taking the time to chat today. I just want to say I appreciate your time. I love your sustainable approach to
Thank you.
fitness, nutrition. I mean, when you're on your stories talking about when you're encouraging people or just what you're eating, yeah, all that stuff, man. It feels like you're like my American brother that I just
I
from a
am.
different mother. So I appreciate you taking the time, and I think you just have so much to value this world and those that you coach. And so, last thing before you go, I want people who are listening to know where they can find you.
Mhm.
And also, as I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, I said that you were an author. Now, you wrote a book called Faith and Fitness Integrating Physical Health and Spiritual Growth. So, can you give us like the Cliff's Notes
Mhm.
of what that book is about and where we can find it? And then also where I can find you
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the interwebs.
The book is my attempt at helping people of faith realize that the temple God gave you is in conjunction with your faith, right? Like if you if
Mm,
you if you let the temple fall apart, it doesn't matter how much faith you have, you can't do anything God asked you to do anyway.
mm,
So it's really hard to help people if you're stuck in bed. So it's a little bit of my story, how I came to faith, how I came into the fitness aspect, and then marrying those two. And we do a good bit of work trying to make a biblical case for that. And then we get into the basics of what human health is, right? So we talk about sleep, we talk about sunshine, we talk about some of these basics. And it gets a little sciencey into that piece. So, and it's an ebook. So there are some clickable links and stuff if you want to read. If you're kind of nerdy like me and you want to read the study or the article, you can. But it's just my attempt to help take something that seems complicated and complex and making it relatively easy, breaking it down into smaller steps and just helping people of faith. And even if you're not a person of faith, just realizing you were given one body and you should steward that thing well. You shouldn't treat it you shouldn't treat it like it's like a party animal. You shouldn't just destroy it. You should cherish the thing that you have, because you're never going to get it back. You can find that on my website. It's just adambroad.com. You can find it there. It's in my shop. It's very inexpensive. It's like $10, man. It's like we're trying to make it easy. So
Love it.
You can also find me on Instagram. Instagram is where I put most of my content. Just at Adam Braud. I have tons of content on there. I have a broadcast channel as well if you want to jump in there. So on my site we have training. We have a lot of stuff on there, and we're slowly coming out with more and trying to help people. So yeah, if you can find us there, we would love it. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, hey, I'll put all those links to your Instagram and your book and all that stuff in the comments below. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be on the section below. So, hey, man, again, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for sharing from your wealth of wisdom and knowledge with us about how to get the results that you want, how to be sustainable, everything we talked about, and lots of James Clear and Bruce Lee. So that's a win too.
Different ends of the spectrum, dude. You got to be a Renaissance man. You just got to have a little bit of everything.
All right, bro. We'll talk soon, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Well, hey, guys, I hope you had as much fun listening to that episode as I had having the conversation with Adam. I learned a bunch. I hope you did too. Hey, listen, if you are struggling with the yo-yo diet, if you're struggling with consistency in gym, if you're struggling in any of the areas we talked about, please don't hesitate to reach out to me on socials. You can hit me up at Dad Nation Co. You can hit me up on my email, which is mitchell@dadnationco.com. Or you can just leave a comment in the sections below on YouTube here. But hey, I tell you what, this is it for us today. But next week, don't forget to tune in. We've got a power-packed episode where I'm going to be talking about the 5 ways to love your wife more effectively, to connect with her on a deeper level than ever before, to understand her relationally and emotionally. It's going to be a fantastic episode. I've been working on the content, and it's going to be good, my friends. So listen, hope you enjoyed this. Tune in next week. And as always, I am in your corner, friends. Talk soon.